I had this urge to change people's life through sport as mine has been changed. Because sport gave me a new life, new friends, new self-esteem, new values. And I used to say that my life mission is to change sports, to change lives through sports, the same way as mine has been changed. They always, like young generations, they're always looking for being rebellious in a way. And the rebelliousness changed the reason, but that's a constant. And this new generation, the rebelliousness comes with some positivity. I do see them looking forward and seeing a future where we can live and things can be good instead of a dark dystopian future. I think they are protopian. And therefore, they are looking for brands that have the same vision of future. If you are a marketer, if you are a person working with a brand or in your own company, be human. Don't try to be corporate. People hate corporate sucks. So be human as much as you can. And the other one is really like, if I can be here where I am, transforming this whole transformative journey I have been through, coming from a humble place, a simple place as Mococa, anyone can do it. I think anyone can do it.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Future Hacker. I'm your host, Maria Taiji, and today we have a very special guest, Caio Amato. Caio has this unique background in marketing, sustainability, and business, and now he's the Chief Marketing Officer at Oakley. With years of experience transforming brands like Mizuno, where he introduced high-end athletic footwear to Brazil, and Adidas, where he launched a line of shoes made from ocean-recycled plastic, Caio's track record is nothing short of groundbreaking. He's a forward thinker guy, blending material science, wearables, and neuro-influenced marketing to shape the future of sports fashion. We'll discuss topics like sustainable fashion, the evolution of luxury brands. We're going to get to know Caio's story, his journey, and the role of technology in redefining consumer expectations. Hi, Caio. It's amazing to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the introduction. Very cool.
Let us know, where are you talking from? Where are you right now?
I'm in Milan. I'm out of Milan. I just arrived from California. Next week I'm gonna go to California again. So you got me in the 3 days I am resting here at home.
Oh, really? Okay, great. And I can bet that you're always on the road, right?
Yeah, that's one of the tasks of this job. It's to try to capture consumers from all over the world. So it's really required that you are out there seeing stuff, people, and trends.
That's really cool to be able to have this type of exposition. But you know what, Caio? Let's start from the beginning, right? You've had quite a cool journey, right? From the challenges you faced in childhood, which led you to for your passion for sports, right? To building a career with powerhouse brands. So what do you believe has shaped your path the most?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'm from countryside of Brazil, a small city called Mococa. And I have humble origins. And when I say humble, it's not victimizing myself, but actually, when you live in a small city, you don't have access to everything. So I used to tell people that I couldn't foresee what my life would become at that point of time. I didn't have anyone to look up to from where I come from. And I think I had a very dysfunctional childhood, if I'm honest, based on the fact that I had some eating disorders, and which led me to be 120 kilograms by the age of 12. So obesity came to my life in a moment of time that I was not ready to understand what it was. And you know that times changed a lot. Back there in the days, it was very brutal to kids to be obese. So I suffered a lot of bullying. And I think I found my way out of the bullying, and I found myself playing soccer. Soccer came to my life, and I started playing soccer at my house and trying to get better and better and better with this urge to appear and be seen and actually give back the bullying I was suffering. And after getting addicted to football, after being super skilled, At one point in my city, I became news because it was super fun to see a 120 kilograms young kid playing that well. But soccer basically saved me, changed my life, and shaped who I am. And it took me a lot of time, Maria, to be able to somehow articulate that. But I really, I had this urge to change people's life through sport, as mine has been changed, because sport gave me a new life, new friends, new self-esteem, new values. And I used to say that my life mission is to change sports, to change lives through sports, the same way as mine has been changed. So this started very early. So my whole career has been driven by this urge, this dream of changing as many lives as I could.
That's a beautiful story. And thank you so much for sharing, Caio. So, let's go through this journey of yours. And of course, the highlights. Like, guys, when I got to meet Caio, we usually do this intro call. I just wish, we were having some coffee on a local like coffee shop the whole day, because there's so many stories and it's so great to be able to listen to them. Let's try to give you guys like just a sneak peek. So let's start by Mizuno, right? You brought, high-end sneakers here to the Brazilian market a couple of decades ago. They were a hit. What was the experience like, and how did you approach understanding all those different in consumer cultures by then?
Oh, that was a very beautiful period of my life because from that childhood that I told you, I think I bring three values with me that drove this whole journey, and Mizuno is not any different. The first value is that I really hate people that are selfish, and I am a very empathetic person. As I suffered a lot of bullying, I love to, build people around me and having them around me being themselves. The second thing that drove my whole career is that I love to change stuff. Like, I was born since I was very young. I love to change stuff, to move stuff forward. And the third is actually that I always have been very persuasive. My mom tells me stories about being a 5-year-old, telling her like a mom that leaves house with the father does not love his child. So I I always been very influential on the way I am sharing a vision, an idea. And in Mizuno, that was the journey. So first, I was coming from a humble place. So when I was running in the metro stations of São Paulo, people were super mad at being at the metro station. That was a big fun for me. I have never seen so many people and the behaviors and the culture and what they were dressing. So I was so excited. And when I got to Mizuno, Mizuno was not a leading brand. Mizuno was a challenger. And when I got, the brand was a very well positioned brand in running. Mizuno took a position in Brazil at one point. We made Mizuno to be the leading brand in running, which is unprecedented and unseen in the entire world. And I think the whole journey was based in two aspects: understanding the Brazilian market and understanding culture. Because a Japanese brand, that the language of Mizuno is almost orthopedic. If you see the product in the past, it looked like an orthopedic product. They were super into the technical aspect of the shoe. And of course, it was the opposite of culture. Opposite extreme. It was the pinnacle of performance. So our journey there was to adapt the products from Japan to Brazil through colors, through finishing, through everything, and being like super driven on bringing this brand to be positioned as the best brand of the market. And at one point, I came to the Japanese and I realized that to get their attention, I needed to go to the why, to the basis, to the foundation, to the insight of why Brazil is so different. And I did my research, and it happens that, like, the importation taxes of Brazil in 2000s, I think, before Plano Real, it was crazy. No one could get an imported shoe. There was a period of time where Brazilians, the guy would rob your shoes, not your wallet.
Exactly.
So we have a relationship with shoes that goes beyond a shoe. And that's what I wanted to explain Japanese, the Japanese leaders. Like shoes for Brazilian at that point of time was a piece of social insertion and a piece of belonging. And Mizuno was seen as one of the best brands, but not the best. So my briefing to them was, let's do the best product of the market, the most expensive product of the market. And it cannot be an expensive product for the sake of being expensive. You need to see, touch that it's expensive. So we created this product that it's called Mizuno Prophecy. That was like a big cultural shift for Mizuno and for the market as a whole. Why? Because I have very good friends from the industry, and their stores, like they used to sell products by at that period of time, the product was 1,000 reais. 1,000 reais was $500, and they used to sell products on an average $80, not 500. So $60 if much. So 12 pairs that we would send to their stores, they would sell in 5 minutes, and it would make their 3 weeks of their result. So the people really, I think, understood what we were trying to do with that shoe, to express all that feeling that the Brazilians they had. The first, I think the first time we brought the shoe to the market was 6,000 pairs, 15 minutes sold out. 60,000 pairs, 5 minutes sold out. 100,000 pairs, 200,000 pairs. It became huge in a way that actually it helped us to be the leaders of the market for the first time ever. Not Nike or Adidas were leading a market, but Mizuno, from a running running is 45% of Brazilian market, so it's the big deal from a financial standpoint. So that's the first story like that. It's and one fun fact about it as well. One of my best friends in Brazil is Conzilla, the owner of the production house, the third biggest YouTube on earth. At one point, he was second. And Conde was telling, he did a series for Netflix. It's the most watched Netflix series of all time, non-American language. And that it's Sintonia. And he was telling me that his Sintonia story was, the argument of the story was three kids. The three of them were super friends, and it was their journey towards getting their first 1,000 reais shoes.
Ah, oh my God.
Yeah, he thought the whole story thinking about the desire of those kids to get those shoes. So then you see how, I think, an insight, consumer behavior, understanding the culture beyond product turns into a product that it's not a product. It's actually an expression of culture and an expression of Brazilianness, if I might call Brazilianness, that 20 years later, 15 years later, it becomes a series that is the most watched one. So those are the type of crazy journeys that I've been through. And having great friends makes it more special.
And having great stories as well. Like maybe it's in your plan to, at some point, write a book about those, right?
Oh, I definitely need to. I need someone to write to me, because I'm not a good writer, if I'm honest, but I'm going to do it for sure.
Ghostwriters, if you're listening to that, you have the tip already there. Hot tip.
Yeah.
So Caio, just looking ahead, the future. I do love this story. It talks about values, consumers' expectations, and it just made me wonder. Those values, they're really changing so much, right? When we cover consumer behavior and trends, looking at the future, we know that there's this new generation that they're very conscious, they're very aware, and they understand the power of their votes with their wallet, right? And thinking about this shift in people's value, what do you think will matter more? A brand that invests in positive impact, or a high-cost exclusive image? And don't get me wrong, I know that the luxury market will always have its dedicated audience, right? But what do you personally envision as the profile of future of luxury consumers? And what will luxury brands need to do beyond this feeling of exclusivity to stay attractive to those evolving expectations?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Because at one point in time, and we've been victims of the changing of behavior. When I say we, I think Oakley. Oakley has been one of the most popular brands in the world because of its disruptiveness and because of characters such as Michael Jordan, for instance. And at one point, it's not about having one person that represents the brand, and the whole dynamic has changed. So um, to me, more than if the brand it's a luxury brand and how to make it valuable for consumers and how they vote, I think the most important thing is that you share values with them. I don't think sustainability is the only value. It's one of the ones we hear most. But if I'm honest, I think we have different ways of seeing it. So, how do I, as a brand, think on a brand as a person, as a personality? That's how I like to do it. So we do a lot of efforts to personify and to create an environment and everything around the brand. So we deal with people as a person because I think that's the most prestigious and honest way to create connections. And what I think is that kids, they always like young generations, they're always looking for being rebellious in a way. And the rebelliousness changed the reason, but that's a constant. And this new generation, the rebelliousness comes with some positivity. I do see them looking forward and seeing a future where we can live and things can be good instead of a dark dystopian future. I think they are protopian. And therefore, they are looking for brands that have the same vision of future. I wouldn't bet all in one topic per se, but I think we as marketeers, we need to really understand what those values are, and we need to be more human because in the end of the day, what they capture is human values. It's not brand values. Like what they care is human values. And at Oakley, especially, like we always have been a very disruptive brand. We always have been ahead of the curve, maybe too much at one point because we were like I love to talk about early adopters and how they the consumption happens and how from early adopters we get to early majority and other consumer targets. Oakley was a brand purely founded and stuck into the early adopters world, and at one point we lacked relatability, and that's one thing that we are trying to build closely with partners to build that relatability. And the last topic to me, I think it's value. When you say luxury brands, the problem is that trying to convey a value through an image that conveys luxury, it's not easy and not effective anymore. If you try to do a picture that conveys luxuriousness without having a purpose or without having a red thread or a reason behind, would only get them away of the brand. Their limbical part of the brain does not understand that luxuriousness and how does it lead to a better world. So, and how does it align to their values? So, more than the price, more than being exclusive, I think the challenge is like what are my values? What do I stand for? And to use all products and all communication to convey those values. And that's where I think most of the brands are losing themselves, if I'm honest.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I do like what you said that it's not necessarily regarding sustainability. There are so many ways that a brand can make an impact. And it's all about really values and human values. So absolutely. So let's go back to your stories, right? Then moving to Adidas. You play this role in initiative to reduce this plastic waste by creating products from ocean recycled plastic, and again, way ahead of its time as well, right? So how did the project impact your view on sustainability in fashion? And of course, before, please tell the story to our audiences, and then how it impacted you especially in a time that you didn't have access to all the technologies that we currently have as well, right?
Yes, Adidas, like I jumped from Mizuno to Adidas Brazil. I spent like, I think, 5 years, 7 years on Adidas Brazil. I had the luxury of being a human with an Olympics and a World Cup in my own country to work with, which gave me this visibility to the global teams. And that's why they invited me to go to global. And I could take a global lead role. I was back then the vice president of brand vice president for running, training, comms, and kids. And one of the biggest projects we have, as you said, was the Parley from the Ocean and the Adidas journey towards ending plastic waste. On that journey of ending plastic waste, um, the first thing was to define what was the goal. That it like we had a CMO back then, Eric Liedtke, that had a very clear view of what he wanted to do, and he literally wanted to end plastic waste. He was a surfer himself. He had some friends in the industry that were already doing some works, and then we started our journey trying to think what could we do to reduce plastic waste, right? The goal is to end, but how do we reduce plastic waste? So we took a lot of measurements internally on Adidas. When I say we, it's the whole group, to reduce plastic in everything. That was the first step. And I think it's a silent step because as a brand, you are expected at this point right now, you are expected to do that. Back then, it was the first brand to do it. And then the next step, we wanted to create some visions of the future. As I told you before, there's no problem on dreaming about solutions, and there's no problem communicating that dream to people, but being deliberate, it's still a dream. So we created a project that was called Adidas Loop. And this project was, how do we create, the dream was, how do we create a shoe that it's entirely disposable? You rework the entire shoe and you rework an entire shoe out of it. How do we really create the perfect footwear that it's a loop? And we started this project with one pair that turned into 50 pairs, that turned into 500 pairs. And we couldn't scale until I left Adidas. We couldn't scale to a point where we can do it right now in our lives. But that was one of the dreams. The second one, we started thinking like, how do we can... The problem of sustainability is not doing small actions, but small actions do not create change. They inspire people. So we had some inspirations that were beautiful. However, we were missing something more tangible. Then we had a partner that our CMO, Eric Liedtke, brought to the table. That was Parley. And Parley for the ocean. Parley is a company that takes trash out of the ocean. They turn that trash into very small particles and they build a thread from the trash. So we create this from thread to thread, right? From thread to thread. And with Parley, we developed our engineer and our development department. They turn that thread into upper for shoes. And what we have done is, how do we make this sustainable? And how do we make this sustainable from a business standpoint? I'm saying, how do we turn that not only an inspirational piece, but how do we scale? And what we have done is we turned that thread into the upper of our most expensive and desired shoe, that was Ultra Boost. It was a shoe that was selling, I don't know, more than 10 million pairs back then per season, 20 million pairs per year. And at one point, we could turn all Ultra Boost into Parley Ultra Boost. All the products were created with plastic coming from the ocean. So then that was, I think, our biggest achievement as a company. It was not to create a vision, but it was to turn that vision into 25, 50 million. At this point, I don't know how big it is, but imagine that you have 50 million pairs of shoes that are made from trash from the ocean. And each pair carried 11 bottles of plastic. So it's not small, it's scalable. So that's one of the projects I'm most proud of. Again, not because of the vision, but because it tangibly became a business for the company as well. So it won in both ways, as a vision, as a dream, but also as a business.
It's another great story, Caio. And one point that you touched that I find it super important is how hard it is to practice sustainability. As you said, it's okay. So it starts with a vision and it starts small and you test it. But the big challenge here is escalating and also the whole cycle, the whole supply chain, right? It's not just about this little piece that you're changing here, but how actually make the whole thing sustainable and a positive impact as well. Even currently, we have been having discussions around renewable energy. Even that, when you're talking about solar panels, when you're talking about wind power, still the whole process is not sorted out. People already criticize how solar panels are still a dirty process as well. So the challenge is big. The thing is that we have to begin in a way, right? And we have to start small and we have to have this mindset of keep improving and figuring out how to escalate it. So a really inspiring story as well. Also, still at Adidas, you were involved again ahead of the time with a project involving the community, right? With Adidas Run. Would you like to comment about that?
That's one of the ones close to my heart as well, because look, to answer your previous question, I don't think it's hard at all to build sustainability into our lives. I think it's expensive. So the problem is not at all, at least from my viewpoint, like the things that I've been through, the problem is not at all how to do it. The problem is it's actually costly. And if you do not have a vision and if you do not believe that vision, it falls apart because it's just more cost. If you see things from a pragmatic perspective without vision, you are increasing the costs. And of course, people are not buying yet because it's a sustainable and not sustainable. They buy when the value is low and when it's easy to shift. For big values and for luxury brands, they're not moving from one to the other. So I think the hardest part is to have a vision and be courageous. And you only spend that money if you have a vision. So that's why I think it's important, both sides, to build a vision where people can dream about and to scale. And it's connected to that point as well, because in the beginning of our conversation, I was talking about my obsession with understanding people's behavior and why they do, how they do, especially the why. And on Adidas Runners, what I realized is that I was leading the running department, the brand department for running. Running is one of the biggest categories for Adidas, for Nike, for everyone. You use running shoes to run. You used to go to the bakery. You used to go to take an ice cream. It's very versatile, right? And it's very comfortable. And we realized first that we were missing in the industry something that would be more versatile to match consumers. So Ultra Boost was an outcome of that idea. How do I create a running shoe that it's also fashionable, that it's also, that it's not orthopedical, that it's something that I would be proud to go to a party if I want, but it would be good enough to run if I want. And as a part of that project, I was one of the leaders of Adidas, together with a guy that is called Youssef. He's a beautiful human being and a great leader as well. Today, he's leading one of the biggest museums in Germany. He's a visionary. We came together and we were thinking how to create a program for running that would break the mold of the industry. What was the mold of the industry? Running was a solitary sport. It was done by people that were very skinny. It was not attractive, not sexy from the eyes of young consumers. We were doing researches and they were always saying, it's not attractive at all. Like, I don't want to be a runner. And we realized that going to cities and understanding what was happening, there was a community of runners booming already. A bunch of young kids, like-minded, fully behind like their self-transformation. And we realized that, oh, no brand has shifted the perception of running yet. We can be the first one, and actually let's define what running is, right? And we created a project that was called Recode decode and recode running. How do we break running apart and how do we bring it together in a different way? Because that's what the kids were doing in the key cities. You know, in New York, there were groups of, I don't know, 200, 300 kids running at night, and they were super cool. They were like-minded individuals. And then we went to New York to test that program, and we tried to create a community program called Adidas Runners. But then we went to New York, and for instance, in New York back then, there was 102 running communities. Nike was sponsoring more than 90% of them. So for us, it was very clear that it was not about sponsoring, paying, and creating transactional relationship with people. We quickly realized that we needed to create real relationship with people. However, I'm a brand. How do I, as a brand, create real relationship with people? We have done some research and we realized that people only create personal relationship with a brand if the brand either helps them to be better or to do better. That was the only way we could find after doing some researches like one-to-one interviews and going to groups. So we thought to ourselves, what if we create a program that can self-better people? And actually, what we ask from people is that they invest on themselves. So the most beautiful part of this project, Maria, is that it's an altruistic project. And that was the hard part, because to sell to the organization was not easy. It's purely altruistic. How do we, Adidas, create a subset of services that we make people better? And the only thing we ask for them is that they invest in themselves. Are we asking them to buy our shoes? No, we don't care. Are they wearing Adidas shirt? If they invest in themselves 4 weeks, we give them a shirt. If they invest in themselves, if they come and train with us 6 months, then we were increasing the prices. But the beautiful part was the following. We started with 20 people. We understood that the 5 areas that we need to cover for running was mind, body, nutrition, muscle, and mental. Those were the 5 areas. We found one coach of each of those areas. We selected 2 captains. In other words, a group of 7 people. We asked to each one of those 7 people to invite 3 friends. And the only thing we ask is invite 3 friends that are in love with running, and we want diverse background. So we invited someone from the financial district, someone that is the owner of a juice bar, someone that was the owner of something else. And in the end, we had a group of 50 people. Then instead of creating us a community for them, we gave them cards from hotel, and we told them, hey, go to that hotel this day, that hour. And then they were entering to the hotel. Pharrell Williams was there. And the idea was that those 30 people, they will discuss with Pharrell Williams, with Noah Lyles, how to create the future of running and how to create the best community on earth. Long story short, that small group, that closed circle, they became so friends. They became literally a community that they were fostering everything. So they started with a bike, sound bike, Adidas Runners sound bike. They were doing exercise at night with a cool sound bike. They created flags. They were driving with a lot of music. Then they created a thing called Run and Rave. They were running at night and they would end on a rave of a club that was one of the participants of the Adidas Runners. On that club, the owner of the juice bar was serving juice for free. The guy that was the financial district was sponsoring all the elements and the DJ because they would do a training session in there. So what we created, in a nutshell, Maria, was an operating system where we would give people what they want most, that it's a platform for them to become better. This group of people, they became 3,500 people in New York in a year. That became 20,000 after 3 years. That one Adidas Runners New York became Adidas Runners Berlin, Adidas Runners Milan, Adidas Runners. Today, I think they have more than 100 cities all over the world. When I left, we had more than 500,000 people already being Adidas Runners. And the coolest part of this journey is that we started tracking this project not by how many units we sold, not by how many people were wearing Adidas, but how many relationships started because of the group, how many kids were born because of the group, how many new businesses started because of the group. Because as I told you before, we're humans. What they expect from brand, it's humanity. And this is this was considered, I think 2020, if I'm not wrong, by Instagram, the most authentic and best. I think they consider the benchmark on user generated content all over the world. So they were using Adidas runners as an example to other brands, how to create a community and a group of people that it's really committed and loyal to a brand without being a brand, without forcing them products or anything else, just by investing on their development.
That's really cool, Caio. And then, so I don't know if I may use this word, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, right? So you came from those really big and more traditional brands, and the traditional is a word that I want to use with care. But you moved to Oakley, right? And Oakley has this fast-paced, innovation-driven environment, right? This type of leadership that it sounds to me from outside that it has a very strong personality and probably has a very different way of doing business and making decisions, right? So what has been the most surprising lesson you've learned across those transitions?
Oh my gosh, like I used to tell people that Oakley, it took me 2 days to fall in love because the Oakley is a brand that I told you my three values, right? I think I always have been someone that it's very empathetic. The second one is innovation. I always wanted to change things from where they were. And Oakley, it's like there are two things that defines us. We say we define problems, we find solution, and we wrap them in art. So the whole ethos of Oakley is built upon how do we find solutions for problems that people do not even know yet, or that people know and we need to help them. The other thing that I love about Oakley is that we have such a free spirit. We have such a drive to do things differently, that since my first day, the question is always, 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 how is this Oakley? If we remove the logo, do you see that it's Oakley? So there's such a strong culture in the brand to drive things towards two values that are shared with my own values, that it's to be 100% authentic and to be 200% innovative and disruptive. So those are the two things that drive the brand. And me as a human being, like first, when I arrived to that crazy building in California, I was like, fuck, I'm a fraud. I'm a fraud. How could they hire a guy from Mococa that like how can I live up to that level of standard of disruptiveness, And as soon as I started understanding the brand culture, I understood that everything is also from a human standpoint based on one value, that it's authenticity. That it's like, if you go to California, everyone works with shorts. They go to work on flip-flops. They do whatever they want. When I say do whatever they want, like they dress the way they want. They behave in the way that they really are. They bring the dogs. They bring whatever they have as pets. So it's a beautiful environment that fosters self-expression. And very quickly, I understood that it was all about being who you are. It was all about being you. So that was the disconnect a little bit in the beginning of the journey, because by being such a distinct and disruptive brand, we were losing a little bit the traction on relatability. And kids were looking to us and they were saying, Oakley is the coolest brand ever. However, I'm not a triathlete. So very quickly, we realized that we created that distance from kids as soon as we dropped off culture. And as soon as we over-indexed into sports, we were not translating anymore that feeling, that human feeling of like, wow, I see myself on that brand. And we started a huge journey towards relatability without losing the Oakley DNA. So my biggest learning, to go to your question, I think we have a person in our brand that is our VP, Vice President, Soul and Creative. That it's called Brian Takumi. He's our Jedi. Oh my gosh, I learned so much from this guy about how to be close to your DNA, but how to at the same time push the brand forward. So, two biggest learnings: you can be yourself all the time, you can behave like yourself, and you can do things differently without losing the integrity of your DNA. So, those were the two things that I think I learned most with that transition. And the last one, Adidas, I felt it was a Titanic, not because maybe Titanic is not the right word because it
It's just
sank.
this huge.
It's a huge
Yeah,
ship
yeah.
that to turn 5 degrees, it takes time and it takes people and it takes investment. When I arrived at Oakley, I'm sorry about bad words, but we are a fucking pirate boat. You know, we can turn things up like 180 in 2 days because that's the spirit of the brand. We're not afraid. There's one thing that we use all the time. There are brands that thinks outside of the box. We don't know where the box is. That's one of the themes we have outside. We don't put ourselves into boxes. So to be a part of such an incredible team that believes in authenticity and that really drives everything towards a better, you know, betterment as a whole, that was a fucking dream.
That's really cool, Caio. And one thing that I'd like to discuss with you is, and this is also how we've been changing the way we position ourselves as future hackers as well, right? So when we started back 4 years ago, we'd have all this dark image of future and the images of the universe. But then over time, we understand that, we should be able also to draw possible futures that are more positive, right? We understand how this image of dystopian futures, they sell more, especially if you're talking about the entertainment industry. But at the same time, we want to be able to incentivize people to draw, positive futures so we can actually try to get there, right? And then we rebranded completely. We are more colorful. We talk more about all the future possibilities in a way that, we can still change if we do those changes now. We start thinking about them yesterday, not today. And I understand that also Oakley's dystopian inspired style is evolving as well into a more positive focus as well. So, what kind of influence do you hope this change will have on the brand's impact and how the consumers perceive it?
This is an absolutely incredible question because that has been our journey for the past 3 years. So, to answer short your question, and then I'm gonna give the background. I, as I told in the beginning of the conversation, I do believe we should treat people as human, and we should have like honest and direct conversations with consumers as if we would be a human being as well. And there's no, I think Oakley, we wanted to increase the relatability and we wanted to show people the beauty of Oakley inside the bunker, inside the office. And we wanted to open the doors of the bunker so people could experience what I have experienced. All of that, beautiful authenticity and beautiful acceptance on whatever and whomever you are. So we started thinking, how do we inspire people to see Oakley as this brand that foster self-belief and also self-expression instead of a brand that represents a very dystopian world. And as great human beings, I think the most effective way is to storytell. We have the Bible, regardless if you're a religion or not. Bible is one of the most effective ways to explain people values, behaviors, and everything because it brings very simple stories that means a lot. And we started thinking about how do we create for Oakley a new vision and how do we translate that vision through storytelling to consumers. There's an ad from 92 that Oakley has done that was a guy living by himself on a bunker, brutalist environment, The world outside was dying, and it was clearly orange. And this guy had a dog and a small television playing a cartoon, because Oakley has always had that DNA of being fun as well. Um, and this guy takes an eyewear, puts an eyewear on, gets out of the bunker, puts the cap, and the world is dying. That was the ad. Why do we like that ad a lot? Because after putting some thoughts, that ad represent a lot what Oakley was. A very polarizing brand, a brand that was like, we do whatever we want and what we like, and we don't care if you outside of the world like it or not. It was a brand more for 45-year-old dudes. It was a brand that was getting older and older, because that group of loyalists, they were getting older as well. And we created a platform, and we said, what if we tell the story of that guy after leaving the bunker? So we created a whole narrative that comes from this guy leaving the bunker. He finds a lady almost dying. He was about to kill the lady because he wanted to protect himself. That bunker was his way to protect himself from the external world. He bring the lady to the bunker to understand if he was in danger or not, if there was other people coming after her or not. And when he was inside the bunker with her, 5 years later, they're a couple. And they have a small daughter that it's called Maxine. You see a lot of tension between the two of them, the dad and the mom, because dad wants to protect, if he was protective with himself, can you imagine when he has kids? He wanted to not let them out. And the mother was like, Max, you are just seeing what you want to see. The world is getting better. There's green outside. And he was like, no, I'm creating a word, digital word, where I'm going to transfer our minds, and we're going to live forever safe. Until one day, they went out to take some stuff, to take some objects to the bunker, and they have been taken by a thermonuclear storm. Unfortunately, the mom and the dad, unfortunately, the mom and the young kid, they pass away with that thermonuclear storm. And then now it's Max Fearlight and his daughter Maxine, that it's a 15 years old kid that sees the world on a completely different than his dad. So the last scene of this small short film that we're producing, that you're gonna see in a very big streaming, in a couple of years, is the girl pushing the same button of the dad, leaving the bunker, and the dad like, are you crazy? You're gonna die outside. And she says, Dad, I prefer to explore and die like mom outside than living on a bunker closed for the rest of my life. And she closed the door. What is this all about? This is ourselves transitioning from that Max Fearlight old guy that wants to protect himself from the external world to a Maxine that it's a daughter, 15 years old, badass as the dad, super progressive, rebellious as the dad, but optimistic and hopeful that the world is healing and that we have a protopian future ahead of us. But the real story is a girl that it's learning who she is, and that it's taking the first step outside of the bunker to really be herself. And why we created that? Because we wanted to inspire not only consumers, but our own organization on how do we do products that are protopian? How do we do the environment of the store that it's still a bunker? It's Oakley. It's still brutalist. It's still steel and cement. But how do we add some plants, and how do we see the life growing and recovering? How do we translate that feeling to the point of sale, to products and to everything? So that is one of the most important projects we have right now, because this project, it's not only gonna help ourselves to be coherent as a brand, but it's gonna help us to all follow one unified direction towards a protopian world. So that is the way we Oakley believe we can, inspire people towards a protopian world. We can create products towards a protopian world, and we can create projects towards a protopian world.
That's such an amazing opportunity, I think, for you to be able to be in such an environment of change and of future scenarios and understanding not only, what I like about it is not only about what you're already an expert, which is understanding consumers, understanding the better, but it's a work of understanding yourselves, right? So this internal work of then first understanding yourselves and evolving within to then showing that to the market. So I bet
Oh, let me tell you.
I
Let me
bet
tell you
that
a
this is
secret.
going to be such an amazing story when it's done, right? Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead, please.
And no, and the fun story is that before we created this script that I told you, that was like Brian, myself, and a couple of other guys creating the script. We created a journey towards 2028 because as a brand, you always think very long term. And Oakley, with our innovations, we're 2030 already. And the journey, we created one little team for every year that we have ahead of us based on human development. So the first year was called The Great Discovery. That was the first moment where you discover that it's not about physical anymore, that it's all about mental, and you have a crazy, beautiful world inside of you. The second year was the inner battle because when you jump inside, you have the goods and bads, you have demons and angels. And in the end of the day, they are always fighting each other towards what you are, right? The third year was self mastery. That was when you realize you don't kill your demons, but actually you embrace them, you embrace your vulnerabilities. And demons, please take my demons as what I'm trying to say, like your flaws. You take your flaws and you embrace your flaws, your vulnerabilities, and that's where we evolve. So all of that, we went through the psychological journey of self-betterment to create the basis for this whole story. So that's why when you see the story, I think it connects to humans and it's beautiful because there are layers that they don't see, but we were obsessed with those layers of putting humans first and behaving as humans while being a brand.
That's wonderful. And so what's the next stage of this human development journey that you guys are on?
We are producing that short film.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, 2025 next year, it's the anniversary of Oakley, 50 years anniversary, and there are big surprises coming.
Oh,
I
that's
wish I
cool.
could tell.
That's cool.
It's gonna be crazy.
Let's
Like
keep
we
an
have,
eye, everybody. Let's keep an eye.
yes.
So Caio, we're running out of time, so I have two last questions for you. So one is more regarding future of fashion. Like if you have to describe future of fashion in 3 words, what would they be?
Oh, that's very easy because it's the three words I think we drive ourselves as a brand. It's authentic, innovative, and disruptive. Those are the three things.
Okay, cool. Now for you personally, now coming back to you, right? So how do you hope to continue using your role to change lives through sports? Like, are there any specific aspirations you're aiming for?
Yeah, I like my life dream. It's to, what energizes me most. There's a coach that I take lessons from. His name is Coach Alan Goldschmidt. He's a genius. I love him. And one of the things that he manages better, and he creates a theory for that, it's to manage energy. And he was explaining how Phil Jackson was managing energy for Jordan differently, that he was managing energy for Rodman, that was a crazy guy. Rodman was taking energy from going to Las Vegas and getting drunk. Michael Jordan was getting energy from actually someone coming to him and saying, "Hey, you're not gonna do more than 50." So he was very competitive. So he teaches us that like your talents are things usually that gives you energy. And what gives me most energy is to share and to inspire people, to share vision with people and to inspire people to be themselves, to be vulnerable and human. So you find me as a leader being extremely vulnerable with everyone. I'm not that type of guy that tries to always be right or that it's directive. I'm the opposite. I tend to make people very comfortable by showing my vulnerabilities first. And that's what I want personally. I want to keep inspiring people to be themselves, keep inspiring that they have beautiful things inside of them. And as much as they start believing in themselves, that's where they're going to become something incredible. It's not by trying to be someone else. It's when they embrace their vulnerabilities and their strengths that they become beautiful humans. So I live to inspire people to do sports and to inspire people to be themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Caio. It was such a pleasure. If you have any, final words for our listeners, I'll leave it to you. And it's been truly great, to listen about all your journey and all your inspiring stories as well.
Thank you. I appreciate a lot the opportunity. And my final message, I think it's the same of this whole, like, if you are a marketer, if you are a person working with a brand or in your own company, be human. Don't try to be corporate. People hate corporate sucks. So be human as much as you can. And the other one is really like, if I can be here where I am, transforming this whole transformative journey I have been through, coming from a humble place, a simple place as Mococa, anyone can do it. I think anyone can do it. If I can, if I could give that hope to people that if they believe in themselves, they can do incredible things. That's all I want. So believe in yourself. That's the message. I think it's the simplest way of putting it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.